Hello, Stampers. Welcome to Learning with Friends. I am Pat Fairless from Fairless Stampin Flair, and I have a technique that I learned from my upline. She demonstrated it a few months back, and I've never gotten around to trying it. It's called Pointillism. And basically what it is coloring an image with dots. And that's kind of the be all and end all of it. So I'm going to flip my camera down and we will get started. So I'm going to use this little flower here in the Love and Strength stamp set. This was in the Fall Mini, and to the best of my knowledge, it is still available. I do not believe it even went on the last chance list, so you can get it still online. It is a great stamp set. I know a lot of people make cards for their church, like a card ministry for church, and they send cards of sympathy, encouragement, get well, whatever. And this stamp set has wonderful sentiments for that. There aren't a boatload of images. There's a little heart in this flower, and kind of a little sprig here, and then some mountains. I love the flower. So we're going to use the flower today. So the first thing we do with the pointillism technique is we stamp our image, and you do want it to be a line image, obviously, because we're going to color it with dots. So let me get this inked up here with my black memento ink. I am going to use my Stampin' Blends today for this. You can also use Stampin' Write markers, and I did play with that a little bit. And so one of the other cards that I'm going to show you, it's a completed card, but I want to show it to you because I did do that one with the Stampin' Write markers. And I think there's advantages to both of them, but we'll talk about that after we get going. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the flower first. Now, just some hints. Look at your image and figure out if you are going to color this solid with your blends or your markers, where would you shade it? What areas would you make darker? And typically, the artists that draw these already have kind of given us hints where that shading should be because they have some little lines in there. So those are the areas you typically want to make darker. You can also envision a light source coming from, say, this direction. So this side may be more in shadow and this brighter. However you think about shading an image, kind of think that through in your mind a little bit before, because it'll depend on where you put your dots and how many dots. But the simplest thing to do is just start with your lightest one. So I've got Calypso Coral. I have the light, the dark, and I have the dark Cajun Craze. And once we get done with Calypso Coral, we can look at it and assess, do I even need the Cajun Craze? You might not. It just kind of depends on the look you're after and what you like and how it turned out. So what pointillism is we are going to take our Stampin' Blend and we're just going to make dots like this. And the hint here is go straight up and down as best you can. If you hold it at an angle, you can do it, but just be mindful that you want dots. What I found is I tended to, if I didn't go straight up and down, I tended to want to get little dashes, and you don't want that. You just want dots. So with my lightest color, you'll always want to start with your lightest color. You're just going to fill in your image. And again, probably put a few more of them closer together as you are in the areas where we have lines and we know it's darker. What I like to do is just kind of do those areas, dot those in first, because then I know that I have more dots in that area. And again, try not to make dashes. You don't want to make circles. You just want to make dots. And you do definitely want to leave light space. So also think about where you might have shadows. You might have shadows here behind where leaves go behind. So add some additional dots in that area. And then just go ahead and randomly just kind of, you're going to put quite a few dots with your first color, which is your lightest color. You're not going to cover it. For sure you want to leave white space. But just fill in the entire image with your first lightest color. And one of my hints here is this is a technique I found you kind of want to practice it. And just to get the feel of making the dots. So now I'm going to go to my second lightest color, which in my case is dark Calypso Coral. And I'm going to add more dots, but I'm going to add fewer dots. As you work from light to dark, you're going to add fewer dots with each layer. And again, you want to kind of focus on the areas that are in shadow. So you probably put a few extra in those areas. So I'm just going to kind of do those first. And you'll get the idea. Okay, now I can go, this little petal here. And now we can go just add some random ones out further in each of the little petals. But again, don't add too many. And here's where I figured out I had to slow down, because if I was going dot, 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 I ended up getting a lot more dots than I really wanted. And I'll probably do that as I'm busy talking too. I'll probably get more. But I got more strategic about where I put them, spaced them out a little bit more. And down in here, this is probably a darker area in the shadows, so you could add a few more. With the blends, try to use a light touch, because what I did find out with the blends is they are blends. So when if you hold this down, it blends out, right? Well, it does it with this technique too. So you really have to be mindful of that with your blends, and just try to keep a light touch. Don't push too hard. If you've got a really juicy blend, even be more careful. A dried out one doesn't work all bad. It's probably a good place to. So here, now I have Cajun Craze, and I am just going in I'm going to put very few in here. I'll get more here in the middle, because I do want this dark for shading, and especially down here in the center of the flower. But out here on each petal, I am just putting very few. In fact, if you got a lot of them from the previous coat and you don't think you need any, don't add any at all. So that is my flower. Now, I can always go back and add more when I get it done, when I get it all done. I can't take it away. So start out going sparingly, and because you can always go back and add more. So I'm going to do my leaves with I have Old Olive. So I'm going to start with my light, and again, I'm going to put most of them a little heavier where the darker part of the leaf would be in a shadow. You could even do it along the vein of the leaf, and just kind of fill this all in with little dots. I like to do where the lines are kind of first and get the majority of my dots in there. And like I said, I did find out, I sort of felt like less was more, because I could always go back and add some after. So now we'll go through and we'll take our dark old olive. And again, I'm going to kind of focus here first on the dark areas. If you have a different way of determining shading, just do whatever works for you. This is not really a science. It is definitely more of an art. So that's why I said I do think this is a technique that benefits from practicing. And I had some that I just plain old threw away. And I'm going to show you a couple of my practice pieces for the very first one I did. And we'll talk a bit about that. So now I would like my stem, and I've done this both with the light and the dark olive on the stem, and I found I liked the light better. My old olive is actually a little on the dry side, so it's a little easier to stay in the lines. It didn't want to bleed out as much. Now, let me pull this up closer so you can see it. Isn't that kind of interesting way to color an image? It's just something a little bit different. If you find that, like if I look along this leaf here, I hardly have any dots out at the edge. So I can go back and just add a couple right along the edge just to get maybe a little bit more definition. And I could do that with the light or the dark, whichever I prefer. Now we could leave it like this. And on many of mine that I did do, I just left it like this. I didn't do any additional coloring. But sometimes, you know, when we color an image, when we color it solid, we like to add a little shading sometimes around the image. And this is where I started throwing some away. And then I grabbed it back out of the trash. So I thought, well, I'll show them why I didn't like doing this. But here, definitely, in my opinion, less is more. So I kept these very scarce, few, far between, kind of irregular around the outside. Didn't add a whole lot. As you can see, these are pretty scarce here. And I liked it in the end. I liked it better where I didn't have quite so many. Now you want enough so it looks like you didn't just drop your pen, right? And I probably could put a couple of them in here, not many. So there, that is my completed image. And I'm just going to put that on a piece of Calypso Coral cardstock. Uh-oh, looks like my thing here might be getting to the end, and it is to the end. The very end. Of course that happens, right? But do I have another one? Let's see if I can get this one running here. Okay. Because I wanted to show you how I did. I thought I'd just take a quick extra minute before I show you the completed card. I can show you this completed card because there's a couple things I wanted to show you on here. So that's how I completed my image. Very simple. I have an embossed background around here. That is the distressed tile. And I wanted to show you how I did this sentiment. If you haven't done a sentiment like that, it's kind of a nice little trick. Just stamp your sentiment on a strip, center it over where you want it, make it longer, and then fold this back. And take a piece of Scotch tape. I just have plain old regular Scotch tape here, and tape that down. And then do the same thing, make sure it's straight, fold this one over, and tape that down. Okay, now you notice I did not adhere this down. that gives it just this little bit of lift and space, and it creates a little bit of dimension. And I thought it just adds a little bit of interest when you do that. My ribbon here is the white and silver sheer ribbon in the catalog, and the way I made that is, if you're not familiar with coloring ribbon, we can take our blends. Here I'm going to use my brush end. They do pull apart hard, and just take this and just rub it over that. Now you can see I'm using the very side of my blend. I don't want to take my tip, because that's a great way to kind of ruin the tip on your blend if you get it on these little bit of rough ribbon. And you can do both sides. You can do one side. Obviously, once you tie it, you'll see it. Some ribbons, it's more important to do both sides, some not so much. This one probably not so much. And that's how I colored my ribbon, and then I just snipped it and tied it in a knot. And it doesn't get much easier than this, does it? Unless you cut it too short, which I did on my other one. Cut it way too short. Man, then it's hard to tie that little knot. And just pull that snug. We will snip our ends. I don't know why. I always like to angle them in the same direction. I know some people like to do them in the opposite direction. I'm not sure what's right. I don't think there is a right or a wrong. So we'll just stick that on there with a glue dot, and then I will have, and I put it right at the bottom of my stem because it is kind of a small flower. And actually, once I get it on there, you know what? I think I want it a little shorter. Don't really need it quite as long as it was. There, that looks good. And we can add some pearls. I used these adhesive backed pearl trio. They have Calypso Coral, Misty Moonlight, and Petunia Pop is their colors. So I haven't used them very much, especially the Calypso Coral. So I just went ahead and added one to my sentiment, and then a couple up here in the corner. And there we go. And I can add that to my card base, and I have another card. Quick and easy, right? And it's kind of a fun little technique to just mix things up a little bit, have some variety. But I wanted to show you, I'll show you the inside. I kept super simple. I did like this saying, there is hope, even when your brain tells you otherwise. And I think sometimes our biggest battle is our brain. And for the envelope, I embossed the embossing folder. I adhered this Calypso Coral strip on there first. It was a scrap laying in my Calypso Coral folder, and then I embossed them together. So that makes kind of a nice little stationery set. Now let me show you the other two cards. The first card, totally different. This one's pretty, thoughtful, very loving. This one's loving too, but this one's just fun and happy. I used the ice cream swirl stamp set. Now here was where I had a little bit more difficulty thinking about where my shading should be. And you can see I did sort of try to follow along a couple of the swirls of the ice cream to make that a little bit darker. The colors I used here were Bubble Bath, Petunia Pop, and Berry Burst. And I did use Stampin' Blends for this one also. This is a cute stamp set, right? Add a couple strawberries on the inside, and here I just embossed the Bubble Bath cardstock for my folder. Now, the one I wanted to spend a little bit more time and talk to you about was the very first card that I made. And I made this card with a new online exclusive stamp set called Mixed Florals. And it's this image here. And this is what I want to focus in on. I did think I would show you this fun fold card. This is a sneak peek of next week's video. We are going to make this bandstand card. It sits like this. Looks very impressive, doesn't it? It has some on the back. You're going to see more of these next week. But I wanted to talk a bit about this image. So here was my first image I did. And this gets die cut. And let me bring this in close. And I know my camera doesn't really like close too much. It jumps around. But see how I did the around the image, and I forgot I was going to die cut it. So I had it shaded all around the whole image. And then it looked really bad because there is like so much in here. And so I just didn't really like it. It was too busy. So when I made it again, and as you saw on the card, I didn't put any shading in this one, right? But here's what I wanted to show you. So this one is made with Stampin' Blends, and you can see what I want you to look at is the size of the little dots. So this one I used Stampin' Blends, and I used Bubble Bath, Petunia Pop, and Berry Burst. And the center here was Pecan Pie. On this one, I used those same colors, but I used my Stampin' Right markers. And can you see how the dots are much finer than these dots? And I'll be honest with you, I like this one the best. I really liked using my Stampin' Right markers. The tips are harder. The ink doesn't spread as much, so you get a finer dot. However, it was great when I used these markers. These are newer colors, and so my markers have this new bullet end on the, because all the markers have been updated to have a new fine tip end. And so these all have that end. Put it in focus, there we go. So I tried to use other colors first. I had Melon Mambo, Flirty Flamingo. I tried to use those on the first one that went into the trash. And these are the old style markers. And so maybe just pull them both here so you can see the difference. All right, give my camera a chance to focus in here, right? See the difference in the ends? These ends here, maybe if they were brand new, but obviously these are old. But when you make dots, mine are pretty dried out. So I got almost nothing with the dots with this style of tip. Now I don't know, because these new ones have been out for about a year. These are probably 10 years old. They last forever. The brush ends still work. So I hate to just get rid of them to get these new ends, because I don't use these ends that much. I use these ends more. So it doesn't seem fiscally responsible to just go buy new blends to get all the new tips. But if you like markers and you have the new style markers, these tips work great. In fact, I like them better than the Stampin' Blends for this particular technique. So that's what I wanted to tell you. If you don't have Stampin' Right markers, this is an excellent time to get them, is during celebration through the end of February here. When you join Stampin' Up! For $99, you will get $125 of product of your choice. And then the first option, which is the best deal, you can also select 2 full Stampin' Right marker collections. So you could get the Regals and the Subtles, or the Neutrals and the Brights, or the Brights and the Neutrals. Whichever 2 you like, you get 2 of those. You can pick 2 full collections, and they will all have those wonderful new tips. Sometimes I wish I could just rejoin to get the celebration deal. And you also get a free stamp set. So it's a great deal. I think it's like a $91 add to your starter kit. So not only do you get $125 products of your choice for $99, and shipping is included, plus you'll get the 2 sets of markers of your choice colors and the free stamp set. So it is a great, awesome deal. So if you don't have markers, this is the time to get them. So, all right, so there are our 3 cards for today. Let me flip my camera back. And we can wrap this up. That's pointillism. Interesting, right? I don't know if I would use it often and frequently, but it's nice little something special to have in your toolbox of ideas to do something a little different and a little unique once in a while. So I just thought I would share that. I'd love to have you give it a try and let me know what you think. You probably do a better job at it than I would. I don't feel like I did a very good job with them, with the cards. I mean, they're okay, but it was something different. I had to try it, so I thought I wanted to share it. So I hope you liked it. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. And I'd love to have you subscribe to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I'm glad you found me. And we do this every Thursday, the second Thursday. I am now doing a template, calling it template time. So we will do a sketch or template to make cards showing how different ways to use a template. The last Thursday of the month is Fun Fold Thursday. And then the other Thursdays, whether there's 2 or 3 of them, are a technique like we did today or some technique. So that's the plan going forward. And we're going to do that until I decide to do something else. If anybody's got any ideas of things you'd like to see, definitely leave me a note. I'd love your feedback. And I wish you a great day, great rest of your week. And God bless. Bye-bye.